Hello, dear students. How are you? Hoping you all are safe and healthy at your homes and eagerly waiting for our video. I welcome you in our social science class for 8th grade. We shall begin with our book Social and Political Life Part 3. Let's start with chapter number 3, Why Do We Need a Parliament? I assure you that this video will be very interesting and informative to you and bring smile on your faces. Students, these two pictures presented here are an introduction to your book and the study material it consists. The title of chapter clearly reveals that we in India ought to be proud ourselves for being democrat. Here we will try to understand the relation between the ideas of participation in decision making and the need for all democratic governments to have the consent of their citizens. It is these elements that together make us a democracy, and this is best expressed in the institutions of the parliament. In this chapter, we will try to see how the parliament enables citizens of India to participate in decision making and control the government, thus making it the most important symbol of Indian democracy and a key feature of the constitution. Students, before going to learn about what parliament is, we should know about the different form of government like monarchy, dictatorship, military rule and democracy. Let's explore little more about these forms of government. Students, many times you have watched in TV or cinema a scene of the court of king or queen in which he or she takes all the decisions for their kingdom on their own. They seldom take advice from the people or the council of ministers. This types of government is known as monarchy. You can see the picture in which a king is sitting with his council of ministers, but all the power rests in his crown. Now, look at these pictures and try to recognize the persons there. All of they are known as the cruel dictators of the world. This was Stalin from USSR. This is Hitler from Germany. Saddam Hussein from Iraq and Kim Jong is still in North Korea. They all ruled or ruling in their respective countries forcefully against the wish of peoples. When a single leader or one person possesses absolute power without effective constitutional limitations is known as dictatorship. Now, you can see more pictures of some military general of different countries. This is Napoleon Bonaparte of France, Gaddafi from Libya and Pervez Musharraf from Pakistan. They also ruled against the will of the people of their countries by taking undue advantages of their positions in military and exercises influence over policy. When a military officer possesses absolute power without effective constitutional limitation is known as military dictatorship. Now students, most important form of government is democracy. This is a form of a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. The form of government in which political control is exercised by all the people either directly or through their elected representatives. The word democracy itself means rule by the people. Who people are and how authority is shared among them are core issues for democratic theory, development and constitution. Cornerstones include freedom of assembly and speech, inclusiveness and equality. membership, consent, voting, right to life, and minority rights. These are some pictures of democracy. Generally, the two types of democracy are direct democracy and representative democracy. In a direct democracy, the people directly deliberate and decide on legislation. In a representative democracy, the people elect representatives to deliberate and decide on legislation, such as in parliamentary or presidential democracy. Student, this is the topic we are going to discuss. After studying all these forms of government, we can say that only democratic system of the government in which people decide and participate to govern themselves. We are fortunate that we are living in India, one of the largest democracies in the world. Since independence, our country makers decided to run the country on democratic way. Why did they think like this? Why should people decide? India, as we know, became independent on 15 August 1947. Proceeding this was a long and difficult struggle in which many sections of society participated. People from various backgrounds joined the struggle and they were inspired by the ideas of freedom, equality and participations in decision making. Under colonial rule, the people had lived in fear of British government and did not agree with many of the decisions that they took. But they faced grave danger if they tried to criticize these decisions. The freedom movement changed the situation. The nationalists began to openly criticize the British government and make demands. As far back as 1885, the Indian National Congress demanded that there be elected members in the legislature with a right to discuss the budget and ask questions. The Government of India Act 1909 allowed for some elected representations, while these early legislatures under the British government were in response to the growing demands of the nationalists. They did not allow for all adults to vote or could people participate in decision making. The experience of colonial rule as well as the participation of different people in the struggle for freedom left little doubt in the mind of the nationalists that all persons in independent India would be able to participate in making decisions. With the coming of independence, we are going to be citizens of a free country. This did not mean that the government could do what it felt like. It means that the government had to be sensitive to people's needs and demands. The dreams and aspirations of the freedom struggle were made concrete in the constitutions of independent India that laid down the principle of universal adult franchise. That is, all adult citizens of the country have the right to vote. People and their representatives. The takeoff point for a democracy is the idea of consent, that is the desire, approval and participation of people. It is the decision of people that creates a democratic government and decides about its functioning. The basic idea in this kind of democracy is that the individual or the citizen is the most important person and that in principle the government. How does the individual give approval to the government? One way of doing so, as we read, is through elections. People would elect their representatives to the parliament. Then one group from among these elected representatives form the government. The parliament, which is made up of all representatives together, controls and guides the government. In this sense, people, through their chosen representatives, form the government and also control it. Now, the role of the Parliament. Created after 1947, the Indian Parliament is an expression of the faith that the people of India have in principles of democracy. These are participation by people in the decision making process and government by consent. The Parliament in our system has immense powers because it is the representative of the people. Elections to the Parliament are held in a similar manner as they are for the state legislature. Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha is usually elected once every 5 years. The country is divided into numerous constituencies as shown in the map. Each of these constituencies elects one person to the Parliament. The candidates who contest elections usually belong to different political parties. Once elected, these candidates become Member of Parliament or MPs. These MPs together make up the Parliament. Once elections to the Parliament have taken place, the Parliament needs to perform the following functions. Number 1. To select the national government. Parliament of India consists of the President, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. After the elections of the Lok Sabha, a list is prepared showing how many MPs belong to each political party. For a political party to form the government, they must have a majority of elected MPs. Since there are 543 elected plus 2 Anglo-Indian nominated members in Lok Sabha. To have a majority, a party should have at least half the number, that is 272 members or more. The opposition in Parliament is formed by all the political parties that oppose the majority party or coalition formed. The largest among these parties is called the opposition party. One of the most important functions of the Lok Sabha is to select the executive. The executive is a group of persons who work together to implement the law made by the Parliament. This executive is often what we have in mind when we use the term government. The Prime Minister of India is the leader of the ruling party in the Lok Sabha. From the MPs who belong to her party, the Prime Minister selects ministers to work with her to implement decisions. These ministers then take charge of different areas of government functioning like health, education, finance, etc. Oftentimes in the recent past, it has been difficult for a single political party to get the majority that is required to form the government. They then join together with different political parties who are interested in similar concerns to form what is known as a coalition government. The Rajya Sabha functions primarily as the representative of the states of India in the Parliament. The Rajya Sabha can also initiate legislation, and a bill is required to pass through the Rajya Sabha in order to become a law. It therefore has an important role of reviewing and altering the laws initiated by the Lok Sabha. The members of the Rajya Sabha are elected by the elected members of legislative assemblies of various states. There are 233 elected members plus 12 members nominated by the President. Number 2. To control, guide and inform the government. The Parliament, while in session, begins with a question hour. The question hour is an important mechanism through which MPs can elicit information about the working of the government. This is a very important way through which the Parliament controls the executive. By asking questions, the government is altered to its shortcomings and also comes to know the opinion of the people through their representatives in the parliament. That is, the MPs asking question of government is a crucial task for every MP. The opposition parties play a critical role in the healthy functioning of a democracy. They highlight drawbacks in various policies and programs of the government and mobilize popular support for their own policies. This is a picture of a question asked in Parliament in December 2017 by the Manoj Razoria, then MP, to the Dr. Virendra Kumar, Minister of State in the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Mr. Manoj Razoria asked, will the Minister of Women and Child Development be pleased to state A. whether the government proposes to coverage various schemes and policies for children in the country? B. If so, the details thereof, and C. if not, the reasons therefore. The answer is given by Minister of State in the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Dr. Virendra Kumar. A to C. The Minister has developed the National Plan of Action for Children 2016, which largely draws upon the existing programs and schemes of various ministries, departments. It provides a framework for convergence and coordination between ministerial departments and state UT government and encourage collective action from all stakeholders to address multidimensional vulnerabilities experienced by children. The National Plan of Action for Children 2016 categorizes children's rights under 4 key priority areas. Number 1, survival, health and nutrition. Number 2, education and development. Number 3, protection. Number 4, participation. It defines key programs, schemes and policies as well as stakeholders for the implementation of different strategies. Students, if you were a member of parliament, list 2 questions that you would like to ask and also try to find out whether MP of your constituencies ask questions in parliament for the betterment of your area. R is not merely asking questions by the MPs, rather government too gets valuable feedback and is kept on its toes by the questions asked by the MPs. In addition, in all matters dealing with finances, the Parliament's approval is crucial for the government. This is one of the several ways in which the Parliament controls, guides and informs the government. The MPs are representatives of the people, have a central role in controlling, guiding and informing Parliament, and this is a key aspect of the functioning of Indian democracy. Number 3, lawmaking. Lawmaking is a significant function of Parliament. The legislative process begins with the introduction of a bill in either house of Parliament, that is the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. A bill can be introduced either by a minister or by a private member. In the former case, it is known as a government bill, and in the later case, it is known as a private member's bill. Students, who are the people in Parliament? Parliament now has more and more people from different backgrounds. For example, there are more rural members as also members from many regional parties, groups and peoples that were till now unrepresentatives are beginning to get elected to Parliament. There has also been an increase in political participations from the Dalit and backward classes. Let us look at the following table and shows the percentage of the population who voted in Lok Sabha election in different years. Students, with the help of this table, make a bar and line graph and write in your notebook whether the people's participation during the past 65 years has been decreased, increased, or been stable after initial increase. It is also has been observed that representative democracy cannot produce a perfect reflection of society. There is a realization that when interest and experiences separate us, it is important to ensure that communities that have been historically marginalized are given adequate representation. With this in mind, some seats are reserved in Parliament for SCs and STs. This has been done so that the MPs elected from these constituencies will be familiar with and can represent Dalit and Adivasi interest in Parliament. Similarly, it has more recently been suggested that there should be reservations of seats for women. This issue is still being debated. 60 years ago, only 4% of MPs were women, and today it is just above 11%. This is a small share when you consider the fact that half the population are women. It is issues of this kind that force the country to ask certain difficult and often unresolved questions about whether our democratic system is representative enough. The fact that we can ask these questions and are working towards answer is a reflection of the strength and the faith that people in India have in a democratic form of government. Students, let's try to find the answer of some question to revise our chapter. Question number 1. Use the terms constituency and represent to explain who an MLA is and how the person gets elected. Answer. A state is divided into many electoral units called constituencies. People of each constituencies elect their MLA. The member of Legislative Assembly, MLA, represents the people of his constituency in the Legislative Assembly of the state. MLAs are elected directly by voting from a set of candidates who stands in their respective constituencies. Candidate who secures the maximum number of votes is declared a winner and becomes the member of Legislative Assembly, MLA. Question number 2. From the list below, identify the work of a state government and that of a central government. A. The decision of the Indian government to maintain peacefully relations with China. This is the job of central government. B. The decision of the Madhya Pradesh government to discontinue board exams in class 8 for all schools under this board. Students, this is the issue of a state, that's why this work is done by the state government. C. Introduction of new train connection between Ajmer and Mysore. Student, this is the issue of nation, hence the central government initiate it. D. Introduction of a new 1000 rupee note. This also belongs to the whole nation. This is the job of central government. Now, student, you have read that most elected members, whether in the Panchayat or the Vidhan Sabha or the Parliament, are elected for a fixed period of 5 years. Why do we have a system where the representatives are elected for a fixed period and not for life? Members are elected for a fixed period of 5 years so that people can change their representative after 5 years. If they are not satisfied with his work, regular elections and availability of options to the voters are the key features of a democratic system. Next question, what is the question hour in Parliament? Answer is, the first hour of every sitting during a Parliament session is called the question hours. During question hours, questions are posed by members of specific government ministers. The concerned ministers have to answer these questions on a fixed date. The questions asked during question hours highlights the shortcomings of the government and also bring to light the opinion of the citizen through their representatives, namely the MPs. The question hour help the parliament to control the executive or government. Student, use the table alongside to answer the question below. Number 1. Who will form the government? Why? Answer. Bharatiya Janata Party BJP having 303 seats which are more than 272, 50% required. Question number 2. Who will be present for discussion in the Lok Sabha? Answer. All these elected and appointed member of the parliament. Question number 3. Is this process similar to what you have read about in other forms of government? Answer. No, because only in this form of government people are participating. Yes, dear students, in this chapter we studied the functions of a parliament and how it is connected to the idea of democracy and election. We also emphasizes on the need for a parliament, the role of people in choosing their representatives in a democracy, the role of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and how the representatives for the same are elected. Lawmaking is another important role of the Indian Parliament. So, I will take your leave now. Thanks for watching this video carefully from the beginning to end. Stay fit and healthy.